So as you know, I'm a big storyteller, and I love telling the story of a couple in my imagery. So one approach that I like to take is I like to find 3 different angles of the same photo. So let's say in this photo, once I've got them in this perfect spot that I think is beautifully framed, I challenge myself, how can I find 3 different ways to tell this story now so that I give a little more variety? So an easy way is to take one scenic and wide shot that covers the atmosphere, the mood, and the scene. Then I'll come in for a medium shot that kind of gets a little bit more details of them, and then really zoom in and try to capture that intimate emotion from them.
That's really cool. This is something that you also do with your detail shots, right?
Yes. I think it's the same, like whether it's a couple or details, like they all have a story to tell. So regardless of what it is, for example, if it's a table, a beautiful table, I'm still looking for like all the different layers of, it's kind of, telling a story is like peeling back an onion, right? So there's many different layers to it. So it's the same thing. When I look at that beautiful tablescape, you know, it's okay, let's get the wide shot of the table, you know, let's come in just so you can see how a few of the elements interact together. And then now let's come in even closer so you can see the intricate details in that.
It's really cool because when I see these pictures, it doesn't look like the same scene. I mean, you know, I know it's the same scene, but you're just cropping in closer. But I mean, they look like totally different images. So it's almost like also the best way to get the most out of the spots you're in.
For example, like when we're shooting, like say Catholic churches where there's restrictions and you cannot stand further than this point, like the last pew, behind the last pew or something, right? And where I might be limited to something like this, when I look back at the photos after, I do feel like there's not much of a story here. Because while they are interacting and doing different things, it's the same, it looks like the same shot, you know? It's all exact same framing, and you can only do so much, you know, changing, like let's put them on this third of the frame, okay, now that third of the frame, right? But in the end, it's like, it's not gonna give you as much content, say in an album layout, as with this. Like that's pretty much just one position. You know, this was taken probably like in a split second, right? Like just me walk up closer. And now this gave a much more, like, it's much more visually interesting, and you can lay it out in an album even just like this.
So my question is, so you're a prime shooter. You use only prime lenses, so you can't just zoom in. So you actually have to physically walk up to your couples.
Yes,
that's why,
zoom.
Yeah. And that's why your Catholic churches, when you can't walk up, you're kind of stuck at it.
I mean, I have a 7200 for that, but even if like the restriction is the last pew, then even at 200, you know, that's the most I can get, right?
So my question was, because, you know, when you move forward and you get so close, do you have certain cropping rules that you follow so you get the best images?
Yes. So one goes back to, again, the rule of thirds.
Okay.
You know, like, again, if you see here, this is actually focused on the ring here.
I see.
But it is more to like the third of the frame.
Yeah, I see like their eyes are exactly where their eyes are, even though they're much closer, but you're following the rule of thirds.
If you can get into that habit of moving your subject to the one of the thirds line, like your photo will be much more well composed.
Yeah.
And the other thing to watch out for is where you're cropping. So in this photo, their hands are very intentionally placed. You know, I made sure that I did not crop right at his wrist, or that there were like little fingers.
Yeah, so you don't see like floating appendages.
Yes.
Got it.
And just for flattery's sake as well, like one general basic rule that will improve your photos as well is avoid cropping at joints. So, you know, if their hands are down, avoid cropping at the wrist, avoid cropping at an elbow. If you can, like try to go, you know, in between instead. When you crop right at a joint, it looks really disjointed.
Yeah, no, I can tell. Yeah, I can see like, because we can see his elbow here, but I can see if we cut that off and then maybe just had his hand here, it would just look like a floating hand. So it does, there is a disconnect when you can't see
and
the rest.
Your eyes automatically fill what's missing, but you need to give the eye enough to work with, and so that there isn't that tension, you know. So like, so this image had it been cropped to there, I don't think would have been as strong. Where this gave a little bit of breathing room.
So Would you recommend trying your best to get it right in camera, or just to
Yes.
shoot a little bit wider and then cropping it if you want to?
For me, I always try to get it right in camera, just as much as I can, you know,
Yeah.
lighting things out of, like, I personally don't like being on the computer. And in an ideal situation, when I get my film back, I get them all in proof prints. So I quickly just do a quick run, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. I give it to my assistant and she culls the digital files to match.
Yeah.
So ideally, I don't want to have to then go back to a computer and readjust things. In all honesty, some of my horizons are not always level. So especially, like in these, it's very forgiving, but whenever I shoot in this studio, these grids on
yeah.
this window is very unforgiving.
Yeah.
So I do have to go in and straighten out it, even if it's just so tiny, like I do have to straighten out that. But aside from that, like I do try to get it in camera as much as possible.
Okay.